AstroPsych 400, home of the podcast for sleep. It's time to go to sleep now. Time to surround yourself with positive vibes. You are who you are. Being weird is not a crime. Today we're going to talk about the subject of respect. In many discussions, people conflate respect with fear. They think that because someone is dominant and powerful and can control other people, that individual is respected, but in all reality, they are not. There is a phrase that I often go to, and it is, never mistake dominance for leadership. Just because someone can rule with an iron fist, it does not mean that they are a good leader, and it also does not mean that they are respected by the people. Respect and obedience are not the same thing, and for that very reason they have different words in the English language for these concepts. To help us out, we're going to go to goodcharacter.com. Question: do you treat people the way that you want to be treated? This is the basic concept of the golden rule, and it's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I was never a fan of the golden rule in the past because I would never think that treat other people the way you wanted to be treated was an effective way to deal with life. What about the concept of punishment? What if someone misbehaves and they need to face the consequences? But if that were actually you in that position, would you ever want to be punished? Would you ever want to go to jail? Would you ever want to receive a speeding ticket if you were going over the speed limit, but someone else goes over the speed limit past you and you think something nasty about that person? I felt that do unto others as you would have them do unto you was an ineffective statement. Furthermore, what about consent? Because if, say, for example, a beautiful woman were to approach me and touch me on the buttocks, does that give me the right to go over and touch her on the buttocks? Can I go to any woman I want and touch her on the buttocks? If I so choose, do unto others as you would have them do unto you? It seems like issues like that would go in circles. But in all seriousness, Michael Shermer, author of The Science of Good and Evil, addressed that very question, stating that the true meaning of the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but ask first when in relation to the concepts of consent. And I challenged him by stating that if you had to alter the golden rule, then how can it be something that you live by if you're adding in your own personal modifications? So it is very difficult to navigate the areas of life, and it has been said many times that that is why there is the concept known as the gray area. In and through the explorations of the gray area, we gain a greater understanding of humanity as well as our own existence. But do you treat people the way that you want to be treated? In many times, I think that I do, but I don't think that that is some type of universal maxim that we can live by. In recent years, I have tended to agree more with people like Michael Shermer and Sam Harris about the concepts of living by the golden rule or understanding other people's nature and existence. Because I think with the appropriate amount of cleverness, you can make the golden rule fit into your life, and you can understand it in a broad way, especially with concepts such as when you don't like someone, it's what you really don't like about yourself. While that doesn't come from Shermer or Harris, it actually comes from Sigmund Freud, or at the very least, he was someone who proposed that it had a great importance in our life. And I began to think, well, what about the extremes with that statement as well? When you don't like someone, it's really what you don't like about yourself. And the only thing that I could think of is push it to the extreme. If someone murdered one of your family members and you resented that person, is that really what you don't like about yourself, or do you dislike them because they did a horrible action? But then I began to think, and it all stems from being angry at someone and resentful and wanting to create this concept of destruction and destructive energy. And you dislike that person because of their destructive energy, and you also have the destructive energy in your heart. With the appropriate amount of cleverness, it can be achieved. So there is a very malleable nature to the words of psychologists and philosophers and advisors in life, spiritual gurus, and a lot of it is wordplay, and a lot of it is trying to communicate to people en masse in ways that they can understand. But to go to the next question, do you treat people with civility, courtesy, and dignity? Again, I try my best, but with the concept of respect, it really is a very difficult road to navigate, because respect isn't about civility, courtesy, and dignity. In all seriousness, respect is about earning the right to be appreciated, acknowledged, as well as being heard, and when people show an understanding that you have a voice and your voice should be heard, and people need to listen to you because they honor your humanity, your ideas, as well as your role in life. And that is very difficult to obtain. One of the harder life lessons that I had to learn in the recent years was that if someone does not respect you, they will not listen to you. They will not listen to your warnings. They will not listen to your cries for help. They will not acknowledge your consent because they will simply try to manipulate the situation to their advantage. And this is very frequent in narcissistic relationships. When the narcissist tries to turn around the negative energy onto the supply, the narcissist will tell the supply that they are being overly emotional, overly sensitive, overly something, when in all reality it's simply a manipulation tactic to get someone to stop talking so that the narcissist can gain full control and full operation of the relationship. Confronting a narcissist is an almost absolute no-go zone for someone who is not a psychologist, according to Dr. Ramani, who is very popular on YouTube. But on the concept of civility, courtesy, and dignity, just because someone is showing courtesy towards somebody, it does not mean that they will be respected. There was a book out there called No Room for Assholes, which talked about how you need to kill people with kindness. You need to show people kindness, and they will show it back to you. However, people who show kindness are often taken advantage of, and I do not believe that I can agree with that statement. Moreover, that same set of writings talked about how if you have someone in your life, especially a coworker, who tells you that you're being inappropriate, or maybe you shouldn't say that thing, or that's not part of the workplace discussion, someone who tries to limit your free speech and expression for certain reasons under the name of morality, that person is your friend, and that's the type of friend that you need to have, someone who calls you out on that type of behavior. But in a discussion about respect, I do not understand how that is purely correlating with the concept of respect itself. Many times there is the concept of arbitrary power tripping, where someone is simply telling someone else to stop talking because they want to gain momentary domination, because they want to control the other person, because they want to have a type of power over the situation. And this all relates to the flaws of the golden rule. You may treat other people the way you want to be treated, but it will lead to the concept of mistreatment. It will lead to someone being taken advantage of. On my Instagram page, BlackBoxNed88, I do a regular segment every week talking about the daily events. It's called the Weekly Journal. I highly recommend everyone keep a journal. I do it in video form because it is easier to express myself that way. And I end the show by saying fairness and empathy, and there was somewhat of a journey to obtain that exact phrasing, because I used to say kindness and fairness as an antidote to those flaws in the golden rule that I have observed. But somebody pointed out to me that not everyone deserves kindness and fairness, so they said, and I was quite appalled by that statement, because if you think that someone does not deserve fairness, how can you coexist with other people? If you think that you should be unfair solely for the sake of domination, how on earth can you have any type of society, relationship, or psychological structure where fairness is eliminated? But I found that the word kindness was a little bit difficult for certain people to accept and to digest and to run with. So I altered it to fairness and empathy, because that is what I believe the Golden Rule is truly trying to talk about. And in the modern day 21st century times that we live in, it's not simply about do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but ask first. It is about fairness and empathy, because if someone is being disrespectful to someone, it might be acceptable to cut them out of your life. It doesn't mean that you want people to cut you out of their lives. It means that they are being unfair, so they need to face the consequences for their actions. But you need to do so in a humane and just manner. Fairness and empathy. The next question here is, are you sensitive to other people's feelings? I believe that I am only 50% sensitive to other people's feelings, because I was talking about this on an episode of Black Box Online Radio. I am also the host of that program here on YouTube. And someone pointed out that you don't always know if people are expressing their true feelings. You can be deceived. Someone might act like something is very important to them, but in all reality they do not care. They are simply trying to put on a facade so that all the attention will be on them, or maybe they want to restrict the actions of other people, another form of momentary domination and arbitrary power tripping. But are you sensitive to other people's feelings? I find that, on average, I am a very highly agreeable person, and as a highly agreeable person, I am sensitive to other people's feelings. And Dr. Jordan Peterson said that agreeableness is heavily connected to empathy. Your ability to care about other people comes from how agreeable you are, and we see this with serial killers who are extremely low in agreeableness but put on a facade or a mask by making other people think that they actually are just an ordinary individual who is the nicest guy in the world, but they are masking their devious and sinister tendencies. So, firstly, number one, you can be deceived, but number two, I do think I am sensitive to other people's feelings, and I would be very curious what other people would say about that. The next question is, do you ever insult people or make fun of them? I do believe that I have done this in the past, but I try to stay away from it now. On one of these podcasts for sleep here on Astro Psych 400, I said very clearly, if you're mean, I don't want to be around you, and I don't want you around me. And I learned that phrase from Christopher Nemelka, and the full phrase is, if you're mean, I don't want to be around you, and I don't want you around me. Mean to anyone, mean to men, mean to women, mean to black people, mean to white people, mean to vegans, mean to meat eaters, mean to anyone. So that includes removing certain types of humor, because humor is very powerful. Using comedy as a form of expression can strip the mask off of the establishment or of tyrannical powers, and people will do this very frequently in developing world nations. They will shut down comedians who are making fun of the politicians, or they will try to limit any form of expression that could jeopardize the status quo. They do not want people making freely thought out decisions, and that includes comedic actors and performers. Instead, they want censorship, restriction of free speech, and tyrannical power. This is a very clear case on how respect is not about power. Power and respect are not the same thing. And on that note, I think we also need to talk about the concept of respect and acknowledgement. When I was 20 years old, I really began to notice that there were people who did not seem to respect my life choices, but my very simple response to them was that you don't have to respect my life choices, for they are not yours. I would only request that they acknowledge that I do have the right to make my own life choices. Respect and acknowledgement are very different things. With respect, there has to be some type of mutual understanding that these types of actions are going to take place, and there is an appreciation for it. Whereas with acknowledgement, there is not a mutual understanding that is required. Someone simply is realizing that the other person has the ability to do something, or that any force has the ability to take place, or to exist, or to be present at all. And I told someone very clearly, you don't have to respect it, but you will acknowledge it. The next question is, what does it feel like to be respected? I do think that there's a certain feeling of status that comes with respect. If someone realizes that they are respected, it feels like they're in a certain echelon of human beings and in a certain type of behaviors, and that they are going to be around behaviors that are not destructive to them, that they do not believe are unpleasant, unnecessary, or unwarranted. Instead, they're going to be around people who exhibit behaviors of optimism, as well as recognition and, of course, previously stated acknowledgement of their right to exist in the way that they so choose. What does it feel like to be disrespected? I'm not completely sure that disrespect is a verb. It's sometimes only used as a noun. Disrespect, he expressed disrespect toward him. But what does it feel like to be disrespected when someone doesn't choose to recognize, appreciate, and value your humanity? What role does respect play in your relationships with friends and family? Friends and family are a very difficult subject to explore with this because, firstly, there are a lot of aspects of friendship that have incorporated their ways into American culture, or have made their ways into American culture, rather, and that is most notably giving each other a hard time, laughing at each other, breaking each other's balls, messing around, just having a laugh, all of these concepts. But I find that the more that I read about humanity, the more I find that those types of behaviors are the result of emotional trauma, or certain aspects of our society and modern culture that are very destructive indeed, that people's parents were very mean to them between the ages of 0 and 4, and they grow up to be mean people themselves, and they project these mean tendencies onto other people. So with friends, there can also be a hierarchy within the group, that one person is the leader who is going to say disrespectful things, and someone is going to be in the middle who will encourage the leader to say disrespectful things, and will challenge anyone who does not say certain things that are desired of them. And there will be someone at the bottom of the hierarchy who will not be able to give any type of free expression at all. The person at the bottom of the hierarchy will simply go along with the way that other people want them to behave, because they're extremely agreeable, extremely passive, and they are also unable to stand up and defend themselves. That's how they get incorporated into the hierarchy in that exact place to begin with. What are some respectful behaviors? In the current contemporary state, I don't want to conflate respect and polite behavior, but also allowing other people to talk, not interrupting, as well as giving a fair amount of talking time. I often find that in many discussions, people will not try to have a balance on who gets to do the talking and who gets to choose the topics of conversation, and disrespect can also take place when someone is intentionally crossing someone else's boundaries, a very childish habit of pushing people around to see what they can get away with, trying to make people angry just to see how people will respond. There's a group out there called the LPAC that says that anything that diminishes the magnificence of the human essence is inappropriate and should not take place. And those types of behaviors, pushing boundaries to see what you can get away with, are taking advantage of other people, and they do indeed diminish the magnificence of the human essence. How important is respect in our lives, and why? Some people do not think that respect is very important. Instead, they want to use respect as a way of removing themselves from the equation. This can range from libertarian secessionism to the simple life of the hermit. someone who just chooses to remove themselves from society and they want to live on the outskirts of all humanity. Instead of being in the middle of nowhere, they can cling to the edge of somewhere, or some people would simply like to be off the grid. So respect is simply having the ability to honor and appreciate existence. Do you consider yourself to be a respectful person? Of course, why not? In what other ways do you show respect to others? By not trying to destroy someone else's belief system, because I did quote Christopher Nemelka earlier on in the episode when talking about the concept of being mean. If you're mean, I don't want to be around you, and I don't want you around me. But he also shared something about how the greatest ability in all of the world is the human capacity to imagine, the human ability to imagine, and trying to denigrate other people's ideas solely for the sake of trying to denigrate them is inappropriate, and it is certainly not respectful. Christopher Milka also shared a very interesting thing on his program Coffee with Chris when he said that if you come to me and you say that you have had a spiritual revelation and you now believe in this type of God and you believe in these types of angels and you now think that this is what's going to happen to you when you die, I will not tell you that you're wrong. But if you say, by the way, what do you think about it? Then I will tell you what I think about it. And I think that very little set of words is dealing with the concept of respect, as well as acknowledgement, as well as honor, as well as appreciation. All of them are together at once because you're respecting someone else's right to exist and allowing them to have their own individuality. Describe one person you respect in your life. What does this person do to earn your respect? I do not spend a lot of time with other people these days, but of course I can think about someone whom I have been working with for a little while, and she is my supervisor, and she has been doing the job for 20 years. She's very assertive, and at sometimes she even crosses the line and sounds a bit nasty, but she can also be very personable, and she can ask you how you're doing, where are you from, and tries to know what you're feeling and tries to connect with you. And she's only being overly assertive because people didn't do what she said the first time. And it is also letting people know that they are indeed making mistakes, and most certainly she won't be taken advantage of. Because she has done the job for 20 years, I do listen to what she has to say because she knows more than I do. And in that instance, I think that there is respect for all around. However, on the concept of nastiness, that might be one thing that I do acknowledge that she is my boss and she can tell me what to do, but I do not completely accept the concept of nastiness because the same idea can be communicated without it. Furthermore, for someone agreeable like me, I'm going to do what she says almost all the time anyway, so it can be reshaped. But again, fairness and empathy. If someone did not do it the first time, did not do what the boss says, then the boss can say it louder again, and then it slowly becomes more and more in line with fairness. But I am a firm believer that you cannot be a good person if you have anger in your heart. So there is a very, very difficult way to go beyond the parameters of fairness and enter into a world of nastiness. Does a person have to earn your respect, or do all people deserve respect? There are two questions in there. The first question is no, a person doesn't have to earn my respect. The whole concept of respect is something you earn, you're not born with it. Absolutely not. Are you saying that you don't respect newborn babies? Are you saying that you don't respect people with special needs who can't articulate their ideas? Do these people need to earn your respect, or are they born with it? Of course they are born with it. Respect is not something that you have to earn. Instead, it is something that is everything to lose and nothing to gain, for the simple fact that are you going to show extreme and intense disrespect to strangers because they haven't earned your respect? No, absolutely not. Instead, everything to gain everything to lose, nothing to gain. And when people do mean and inappropriate behaviors, and they do cross that line from fairness into anger, then you lose respect for them. And that becomes the foundation of the problems that we experience. How do you show respect to others? By allowing them to exist and not trying to destroy their existence. Do you show respect to strangers differently than you do to your friends? Absolutely, because with your friends you're going to be spending much more time with them, and with strangers they aren't necessarily incorporated into a hierarchy that is present around you. Your friends are incorporated into a hierarchy. Does it feel different to be disrespected by a stranger than disrespected by a friend? How so? Absolutely, it feels different because you don't know the stranger. The friend has an expectation of respect. If your friend does not respect you, are they really your friend at all? And if the friend shows disrespect towards you, then it definitely is betraying a value that you believe to be very important. Furthermore, disrespect from a stranger is bad, but there is no understanding that there's going to be an appreciation of a relationship. In fact, there is no relationship present at all. What are the benefits of treating people with respect? It leads to fairness and empathy, and through fairness and empathy, we live in a more just, more moral, and more peaceful world. When was the last time you showed disrespect towards someone? I yelled at someone from customer service over the phone because I thought he wasn't doing his job. But what he was trying to tell me was that I was asking him something that was not in his department, and for a while he was trying to answer my question, and then he gave up. And that is when I got angry, and I was wrong. I should not have done that. And I told him that he wasn't trying to do his job, and he said, "But it's not my job." And I said, "Why didn't you just say so at the beginning, that you weren't responsible for these types of actions? Why didn't you say you weren't responsible for this part of the job?" And the phone call was quickly ended. I'm not even sure if he said something. But the whole point is I should never have yelled at him, and he also could have very clearly said, "We are not responsible in this department for the info that you are requesting. I suggest that you contact someone else," and then he could have avoided the issue as well. Life is twofold. There are almost always two sides to the story, but there are definitely two sides to the piece of paper, two sides to the coin, and two sides of the light and the dark. What do you think was their reason for treating you in the way that led to you showing disrespect toward them? I thought that that person whom I was just talking about was being lazy, or at first he was trying to help, but then he gave up. And in all reality, he was probably just too afraid to say no at the beginning, that he did not know the answer, or he did not have the information, or he wasn't responsible for the questions that I was asking, but instead he tried to pretend that he could, but then he gave up once it became too extravagant for him, and that is what allowed me to get angry. There's a reason why people, though, support the concept of honesty. What are some reasons people show disrespect for others? This subject has been explored very extensively, and some people think that it is purely about consequences and punishment, as well as what Kierkegaard called the aesthetic living to avoid pain, where some people are, if not going to show respect when they believe that they won't be punished for their actions, they will not. Well, a better example would be if someone said that if you yell at customer service people, you could face 10 years in prison. There, many fewer people would do that. Fewer people would do that indeed. So many people believe that it is a result of consequences, living to avoid pain and living to avoid punishment. How do you feel when someone judges you without knowing you or giving you a chance? I feel like they are being immoral. How do you feel when someone you disagree with calls you a name? Same as said before, they will not do that if they will be punished for it, or more importantly, consequences and punishment that they care about. Does respect play a role in a harmonious society? Absolutely, because it's all about acknowledgement. Thank you for listening to Astro Psych 400. I hope that you are getting sleepy and that your eyes will close soon. It's time to go to sleep now. Goodbye from Astro Psych 400, and I would like to say good night.